In the news this week, Rishi Sunak announces a general election is to take place in July. Jersey moves forward with plans to legalise euthanasia and assisted suicide. And a rape crisis support worker forced to resign over her gender-critical views is vindicated at a tribunal. Hello. Rishi Sunak has announced that a general election will take place on the 4th of July and has asked the electorate to decide the future of the nation.
Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, to decide whether we want to build on the progress we have made or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty. Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
The Christian Institute is urging all believers to vote and has launched a new video outlining some of the various issues to consider before heading to the polling booth. The video is part of a larger campaign to help Christians navigate the election, from analysing parties' manifestos to challenging candidates during the hustings. Work is also already well underway on the Institute's Election Briefing 2024, which will go into greater depth and set out where some of the major parties at Westminster stand on the Christian Institute's issues. Supporters on our postal mailing list can expect it to land on their doorstep before July. The Institute has slammed a taxpayer-funded study which urges Northern Ireland to create a new conversion practices law based on the allegations of just 10 people. Commissioned by LGBT groups and funded by the Department for Communities, the study interviewed people who claimed they were offered or experienced conversion practices in the last decade. The authors claimed that 7 participants encountered conversion practices through faith groups and listed prayer as one of the frameworks and techniques involved in conversion practices. The Institute's acting director, Kieran Kelly, said the research was impossible to take seriously, following the study's own admission that it is unrepresentative of the public. He added, "This is nothing more than activist research, branded with the campaign colours of a lobby group, yet paid for by Northern Ireland's hard-working taxpayers." Legislators in Jersey have progressed plans to legalise assisted suicide and euthanasia on the island. Following a vote, draft legislation on so-called assisted dying is now expected to be brought before the state's assembly next year. Under the proposals, adults who have been resident on Jersey for at least a year and who are diagnosed with a terminal illness would be able to request to be killed. During the debate, a number of deputies and constables spoke out against the practice.
It would be a licence for one human being, subject to conditions, either to help another to commit suicide or to bring another person's life to an end. Whether one is for or against it, assisted dying is a cosy euphemism which obscures the reality of the debate.
Many of you may well have watched the actress Liz Carr and her programme Better Off Dead. The title of the programme, incidentally, came from a comment made to her along the lines of, didn't she feel she would be better off dead given her disability? And therein lies some of our prejudices as a society. The line, "I don't want to be a burden," comes from that subtle coercion which I believe we have yet to deal with.
It's this slippery slope that I fear happening here. Once the principle is established, it would only be a matter of time before it's turned up one notch here and one notch there to include many, many people.
And finally, a woman who was forced to resign from Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre over her gender-critical beliefs has been vindicated by an employment tribunal. Support worker Ros Adams was subjected to a misconduct investigation after asking on behalf of a domestic abuse victim whether a non-binary staff member was a man or a woman because the client felt uncomfortable talking to a man. Employment judge Ian McFatridge has now ruled that the management wanted to make an example of Adams because they believed she was guilty of a heresy in that she did not fully subscribe to the gender ideology. Welcoming her vindication, Adams said, "This is a victory for all people who have been subjected to sexual violence, who need a choice of worker and group support on the basis of sex in order to feel safe. For me, it validates and makes worthwhile 3 years of struggle." Well, that's all for this week. For regular updates and information on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.